Welcome to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the podcast that cuts through the rubbish to explore the world of neurodiversity. I'm your host, Nic King.
And I'm your host, Kate Fox, and together we're here to explore, understand and celebrate being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world. From ADHD and autism to dyslexia and other quirky brains, we talk about it all.
And go off on tangents. So whether you're neurodivergent, love someone who is, or you're just curious about neurodivergent minds, you are in the right place.
Let's get ready to juggle some words and maybe even a few chainsaws, metaphorically, of course. Welcome to the second part of mine, Kate Fox, and Nic King's Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws podcast. Oh, I struggle to say that every time. It's so many words in a mouth. Our second part, where we have the brilliant Amy and Jac and Amy from Autism Level UP, far across the pond to me and Nic. Anyway, maybe not to you. Maybe you're listening across that pond or another pond. I don't know. Anyway, we just had an amazing first part where we uncovered sensory joy as a necessity, not just an optional. And we talked about Sensory Joy Island and what might be on our own Sensory Joy Islands, because of course it'd be different for all of us. Mine, it's just water, so it's not technically an island because there's only water, so we can't tell it's an island. That's
going to be a lagoon in the middle of the island for you.
The lagoon, yes, and there's all different temperatures. This is amazing. But how do we model this stuff to other people? How do Jac and Amy model this stuff to other people in their advocacy, activism, being, facilitating, teaching? So I think that's where we'll start. In summary, I mean, this you could answer for half an hour. That's the whole podcast. How do you model this stuff to other people?
Well, for one thing, we go into schools a lot. So starting younger than work, I am just me in that school. I will be all over those hallways, jumping up and down. Some of the schools that we've worked in for a longer time have like jump ropes and things out. I will use those things actively. We practice what we preach. I am never faking anything in a school. I let other students see that I am in my job and I am meeting my sensory needs all the time. So seeing it is really critical. I also have to say that when I am in these classrooms, it's very essential to steal, if you want to use that word. I think it's like Robin Hood.
Rob from the rich, give to the poor.
Yeah. And
except we're not giving this to anybody.
In this case, the poor is a trash can. Larry or any
whole body
listener, I take him off the walls. That is a problem. This sense that we have to look the same to learn, and that there's one way to look to access information, is not helping anything. And I think it's a first layered defense to autistic joy. You know, if people really were full body listeners or whole body listeners, neurodivergent people would be the poster children, not Larry, not sitting there crisscross applesauce, perfectly still, heart doing whatever it's doing, eyes, ears. No, fully immersed in this content, feeling it, walking around, repeating it, listening to it, experiencing it. Yep. Yes. If we don't let people flow naturally in school when we're trying to get them excited about some topic or subject, how are they going to know how to interact in the real world? How are they ever going to actually become passionate about any of these topics we think should be important? So also getting rid of those standards of it looks the same for everyone. That's a great first step in making sure people know I can look different when I am experiencing something that's exciting or that's terrifying or whatever it is. I can look different. I'm expected to look different, and you're expected to look different.
Well, and I think that's true. I mean, I think even like if we expand out of that, like this is how we dress. I have a little bit maybe more like, I don't know, professionalism, but not really. It's a t-shirt than you, but you're always in hoodies, you're always in cutoff sweatpants because those are comfortable to, except it's in the
cutoff.
winter and then they're
I have
like,
one pair of pants that feel good, and so I use them for the winter, and then when the summer comes, I just cut the legs off so they're the shorts because I can't. I just brought a pair to Amy to sew the pocket up for me because I can't afford to lose a pair of well-fitting things. But yes.
But you go into schools dressed what other people might think is not professionally, or you'll get up and lecture in front of 600 people dressed as you're comfortable, shoes on, shoes off. Like, and so it really is about modeling and breaking kind of people's expectations. Like the keynote speaker, we expect him to show up in a blazer. Neither one of us are showing up in a blazer. I think we did a lecture in Canada.
Unless that's our like rental car.
We did a lecture and the person wrote back like, oh, it's business casual. I'm like, I gave up a long time ago adhering to what other people think I should wear. And like, I just like, and that was it. Like the conversation was over. But I think it's so important because people assume, like when we think sensory joy, like, oh yeah, maybe it's Jacqueline will get on the bike desk during a meeting or Amy's going to stand up during it. Okay, they're modeling this, they're doing it all the time, but it's everything about how we kind of navigate the world and experience. And even when we're doing like these Zoom things, right? We're standing. Like a lot of people would be sitting to do this because maybe that's more comfortable in their bodies, or maybe that's just what they think they should be doing. Never will you see us sitting. Never.
That's not unless I'm on my hunkering stool.
Oh, she does have a really good stool that has 3 springs. So when she's on it, you know it because she's like.
The other thing I don't want to forget to say is in a workplace. So after, if you listen to the last episode, you heard about when I went into my first full-time job and went through a big old autistic burnout from putting on the 9-to-5 professional act.
Down shirts.
I like the if you missed the smolder that Jac had there in the eye, I feel like that there will be a video somewhere and we need
a
a
freeze frame.
image of the smolder.
pure blue steel. What was I going to say now? Oh, so when I went back into this environment, having the tools and strategies and self-understanding to be able to self-advocate for my needs, I think it made the environment better for everyone. Showing that there can be this range of how you interact in a meeting or on the day-to-day, or when you need space and time away from people stopping by your door, just these simple things. When people realize they too have a choice in doing this, like neurotype aside, people are like, wow, I would like to have that closed door time too. That would be really productive for me. So giving more options is not a problem. It's not a negative thing for a business or a company or school, wherever you are. It's only going to increase the chances that everyone is able to be productive and more than that, feel like they have a good work balance and want to be contributing. When people want to contribute, that's a beautiful thing. So the range of possibilities within an environment is really mind-blowing for some people. I think it's a positive for everyone.
I have a question. Something is occurring to me, and I don't know. I don't feel it's too much of a tangent, but I'm thinking of offices like Google and what I hear of like Apple and how they would have kind of, I mean, what sticks in my mind, they have like jelly beans in bowls everywhere, which made me want to be like a tech expert, even though that's never going to happen. You know, and they seem to have like slides in the office, stuff like that. I'm presuming this is not uncoincidental that we have many, as we know, neurodivergent people working in tech. You know, for a while there was Silicon Valley syndrome before we were using other language. How does that, it feels like there are certain sectors where this is actually addressed, maybe by accident.
I would say I hadn't really thought about it this way, but like hearing you say that, I think places where people are expected to be creative embrace more of that type of thing. Like, how do you think outside the box? let's create a place to play. So your mind is already outside of it, right? I think that's where it comes in. But that's also where neurodivergent people often thrive. So it's kind of like this beautiful, like, I'm sure it didn't happen by accident, but I'm sure like to the outside world, it looks like, oh, this is just a way to spark creativity, versus to the autistic person, this is what fires up my nervous system. This is immersively what I need to be able to do this. And I'm just thinking back to what we were talking about in that first section that we talked about. We talked about this idea of like, Nic, you were talking about the commercialization of sensory and like these 20 minutes to be able to do this thing. And like, it really is not, yes, you can front load, you can do these big activities where you're like, I get this thing that I need. And I actually wanted to go back. This is my ADHD kicking in. Sorry. I wanted to go back to the thing you said at the very end, Nic, where you said, what does somebody let go of in their childhood that they don't even know what they're missing? And all I could think of when you said that in that moment was our bond over aerial silks and aerial yoga, and me going, once I flipped myself upside down, I was like, this was my entire childhood. Like, yes, I'm still doing headstands and things in yoga, but it's not the same as moving through space only suspended by one spot. Like, it just doesn't feel the same at all. And I was like, that was it. It was such a moment to me. And now I'm like, how do I get a rig in my backyard?
I mean,
because I need it, right?
They are available to buy, quite literally.
I'm working on it.
I'm working on it. But yeah, I think it is part of the thing, isn't it? That you let things go. They get conceptualized within childhood. They get conceptualized within play. And then the infantilization, oh, I managed to say it, of autistic people is in an observational model. We're not allowed to still do that kind of play. You know, they don't want us to be infantilized in that way. They don't want us to look like we're playing. They don't want us to look like we're young in that way. They want us to, you know, being able to be told what to do and compliant and, you know, sort of
or meet your need in this conventional way.
Yeah. Whereas actually we need to go back to looking at the things that did work, the flipping upside down. I remember the majority of my childhood was spinning on like a tire swing that was like flat as opposed to up, and like spinning and just watching the tree immediately above me, which was a huge chestnut tree in my garden. And I think I probably did that for hours, days. And very like Jac, I've talked about this before, that I had a very privileged neurodivergent upbringing, in that I had, you know, family and stuff that didn't use the word autistic, but they did identify they were different, and they led a very, what we would now call, authentic lifestyle. And I've obviously had that privilege, and then, you know, I did the thing where you go and get the job and it doesn't work out, and you go and do burnout every 3 days, 3 months, 3 weeks, all of it. And it's getting to that point, isn't it, where you get to sit and you get to figure out, you know, what you need and what that looks like. And then some of us even get the privilege of being able to model it and share it and, you know, give it further space. And I think that's a beautiful thing.
It really is. It's like being able to put out there that this is what's working for me, so it's a possibility in the world, is the best. The more we can do that, the more people can do that, the more the young ones get to see, and the more it just becomes standard that, again, we expect it to be different. And in fact, being the perfect average normal would be the weirdest thing in the world.
And I think even outside of children, I think like when me and Kate met doing her show, I've now been a few times, including this week, and I think even just other autistic adults in that room find your show incredibly affirming and freeing, and they start to think about the things that they're doing that don't bring them joy, and how they can think about bringing more sensory joy, or even just octopuses, Kate, into their lives.
Exactly. Or even, well, someone in one of the feedback forms actually said, I'm now going to buy the dress with the little foxes on that I hadn't allowed myself to buy. And I was like, yay. and I'm not quite sure what bit of my show prompted that, but there was some, as you say, a freedom, a liberation. And for me, my shows used to be not static, exactly, because I'm a spoken word performer. So I'd be basically stimming on stage, really, with my words and movements. But now this show, this more conscious show, has become much bigger in my movements, and I kind of do a bit where I'm kind of doing shamanic dancing, and I'm consciously more openly stimming because I am modeling it. I recognize it will pass through to my audience, and even if they just have 1 hour experience of that freedom, or they just take 1 minute of it, really, where they might sit slightly different, that then sets up the possibility for more of those minutes and more of those moments. So it sounds like we're all in differing ways showing it by being it.
Hope you've been enjoying the podcast. If you fancy showing your support, you can leave us a little bit of money through the PayPal link on our website, and I will use it to buy a lovely cup of tea and make my life better. I can't speak for Nic. It'll probably be something very worthwhile. You can do that via Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws, the website, and it's an easy way to help keep the podcast running. Thank you for being part of our journey.
Do we have is there anything, in like mainstream culture that we could wish for that could happen? This is not a good example, probably. Taylor Swift has just come into my head. So Taylor Swift gets to go around the world on her Eras tour, and she probably pings some neurodivergent radar, I don't know, but she gets to, dance about and do her thing. But she's not in any way explicitly or consciously modeling exactly neurodivergent joy, but she could, like someone like her could. So to me, they could just open an invitation or frame it slightly differently. Is anyone, do we need anyone to do that?
Do you know who I think does do that? But not consciously and not openly. I think Pink. I've claimed Pink as one of ours.
She's my go-to, Pink. I love Pink, but
she's flying around all the time.
I know. That's the show that I would go. Well, I have gone to see her multiple times, but the person who comes to mind actually in Australia is Chloe Hayden, who is very open about her autism and neurodivergence in general, and she's in Heartbreak High, like they're in their 3rd series or something, and she is very out there about what she needs. And on the red carpet, she's got like ear defenders on before she'll take her photos, but you'll see her photos like with them on and then with them off and then plopping them back on, and she's very comfortable in her body. And I just think that's what it is. So yeah, having a person who is identifiable to like the mainstream, but I just think one of the things I just think about you definitely, but both of us, is we're just kind of unapologetically who we are. Like when we go into a space, like we're not trying to mold or morph for anybody. And I think that's shocking for people sometimes. But I also think it's really, it gives people pause, and it gives people option for what possibility is. And I'm also thinking about that one time in your meeting where the meeting had gone over the agenda, which is a no-no. Like meetings should not go over.
We fixed that. We fixed that later.
But it was at a time where you were still working in this kind of professional environment. You were people were learning a lot more about you and what your needs were, and you just pushed yourself straight out of a chair into like an L-sit, right? Like,
yeah, feet up above the table. I was in like a
just both tricep extension.
I can do it.
No,
here,
but
we don't have chairs.
I like that the dog has a sofa. No, the sofa.
Yeah. He's abandoned that. But so straight up, like butt not on the chair, straight up, legs out front, and the people just went, "Do you think that means she's done or the meeting's done?" And somebody else just went, "Both.
Definitely both."
But just like being able to have that really candid moment, like everybody left that meeting with like, we need more of that in the world.
Yeah, I'm just remembering it, and this is very random, but there was a moment many years ago in Britain. There was a minister for Northern Ireland, Mo Mowlam, and she was round this very serious meeting with all mainly blokes in suits discussing the future of the Northern Ireland peace process, and she was undergoing cancer treatment. And at some point, she just whipped off her wig put it on the table and carried on with her bald head. And, you know, it was such a statement of, whoa, and she carried on, and everybody else is, you know, their minds are blown. And she was clearly going, you know, I don't care anymore about your ridiculous rules and conventions and all your stuff. I've got cancer, for starters. Also, she was always disarming in that way. But, you know, as you say, we need more of it, because it's very, very rare, and maybe increasingly rare in public life, that we see that being okay.
Do you think it'll change? Because I often talk about how we're potentially the last generation not to be diagnosed. If we continue in a sort of a linear progress, let's assume that we do, that, you know, this we are the end of a road in people who do not know that they're autistic. And maybe, you know, if we're there and we're modeling and we provide young people with the tools and the environment that they need, possibly not in this immediate generation, but let's, you know, planting seeds for trees that you never appreciate the shade of, etc. You know, will that start to come through, and then will more people just join us in the sensory joy light? Because it's not just an autistic thing. It might be, you know, we might be looking at 100-degree saunas and L shapes in meeting rooms and stuff like that. Maybe things that are considered more extreme. Ugh, bad word. But like, you know, some of us need a lot. And but would it just produce a sort of a better environment for all to be in? You know, we've bought into very sort of grey, dull offices or factories, and having it's made up. Somebody made it up a while ago, and now we're just like, oh, that's the way. But then we're all like, oh, we're really unhappy.
Shocking.
And then
Shocking.
I mean, I always wonder, is it, you know how when you're a kid and you're learning something or a song comes on, you might learn the thing or learn the lyrics so instantly, or like learning a language. Like, we're so flexible. We have so much neuroplasticity. We're playing. We are just playing and naturally exploring, and we pick things up so fast. Does that stop for us as adults simply because our number of age is growing, or does it stop because we stop exploring the world in those ways? I think if we carried on longer and kept playing, we'd all be learning more. And not that this is about productivity, but we wouldn't even need a scheme to put us into positions to crank out productivity. We would be so progressive because everyone would be learning so much.
Feeding the need.
Feeding the need.
So slides in office, aerial silks everywhere, a lagoon.
And, you know, we're talking a lot about very active strategies, but
That's
for
true.
some people, it's the passive.
That's
Like
really important.
the music they listen to, the scents they smell, the tastes and feels within their mouth. All these things can
The
bring sensory
Textures
joy.
of clothing, weighted blankets.
Be
like,
valuable, both tools or toys, depending on the situation. So yeah, don't stop playing, don't stop exploring. And by default, even though it looks like less work is being done, I actually think way more things would happen, because we just, it's our natural way. It's keeping our brain plastic and fluid.
Well, and Nic, to your question, I think just to kind of bring back what Jacqueline said, if we get the support right for our young people, right? If things that are truly affirming, that are led by autistic people, so No Bears and Pandas says, you know, Autism Level Up, like if we truly understand masking, if we're supporting people to live authentic lives, I do think it will shift and change. I think we've got to move away from this commercialism of all of these things. Like you get your 20-minute sensory break, right? And when you said that earlier about the 20-minute sensory break, we actually have in our inbox right now someone saying, I have someone who's setting a timer for 10 minutes that this young person can stim. How do I stop the adult? Thank goodness. Like they want to stop the adult and setting the timer, but like that's what we're up against.
Yeah.
Right. Today, we're up against a timer saying you've got 10 minutes to stim.
and that's it.
Yeah. So
Even if you're flowing in the task, by the way,
Right.
we set the timer for the task and now you need to go regulate because the timer went off. It's also artificial and doesn't help for real life for someone to actually recognize what are the signs in my body that I'm lacking that sensory input.
Because it's being modeled and controlled by people who do not have our neurotype, and you can't understand somebody who is vastly, vastly different to yourself, especially if you're not learning yourself or equipping them to have their own knowledge or information. And I could rant for days about the observational model, but that's not where we are. If we could say one thing to our readers about modeling and why you feel safe to model, what would you tell them?
Well, first, I'd be completely honest that I have about zero social motivation. So sometimes people will write to us and say, I want to, but, and I'm like, I don't feel that at all. For me, this is a huge privilege and luck of my profile. Once I understood what I was doing with the mask, it was so easy to say, oh,
Let's not.
I can get rid of that. In fact, Amy had to draw me a diagram of maybe safety of like who I should try taking it off with first. Like it might be safest here. Like she kept me safer because there are environments absolutely where people don't have the privilege and it could be dangerous to them. And I would have no sense of that. So I would say it's easy for me to say, just do it. But if someone's not in that spot, it might not be that easy. I will say the more autistic people and neurodivergent people infiltrate every field of life, the more it will just become part of the environment. So I do think naturally we will see it expand, but I would say if you're concerned about it, I have gotten nothing but positive feedback that I know of from it.
That's true.
I seem to liberate people in office spaces and in school buildings and at conferences where they come away from it, much like your comedy shows, it sounds like they come away from it like, oh my gosh, I don't have to wear this thing. Like, I don't have to walk around in these heels. I don't have to sit under fluorescent lights for 8 hours. I can turn those off. I can put a lamp in, like, freedom. So if you can find even a moment in your day where it feels safe, start doing it. See how it goes. I bet you it's going to go better than you think.
I'll say two things. One is you use a lot of humor when you bring things in. Like you'll often be like, I'm a liberator. Like, and that disarms people.
I think humor is actually the most serious thing to counter what we said.
But we use it all the time. You use it all the time. And I mean, as soon as she says, I'm here to liberate this situation, it like disarms people entirely. They laugh and then they just see what unfolds. I think the other thing that I'll just say from my perspective about why it's always kind of been safe for me, I'm very quirky, but I'm an OT. So I could just be like, I'm an OT, sensory is my thing. And there's a reason I got into this profession because I'm looking at myself. And so people like that just resonates for people. And so I can enter the conversation in that way. So humor and just also being able to make that connection, but that connection through a profession can make it really much more palatable for people, I think sometimes.
I'm just going to pull a U and get the last word in, which is usually, she might do it again, but the other thing I think we're really conscious of is sometimes these teachers or people in a workplace will say like, that is so awesome that you're able to just be you and do that. And we have to say back to them, now give your students or your children the same grace. It's interesting that me as an adult who can say out loud and advocate for these needs often gets immediate respect to do it. But sometimes children and others who aren't in my privileged position do not. So also spread that grace.
This has been beautiful and joyful, and I can't express how grateful we are that you two, Jac and Amy, have joined us. And yeah, hopefully there will be more beautiful conversations, and keep on leveling up.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Neurotypicals Don't Juggle Chainsaws. We're so glad you joined us today to explore the fascinating world of neurodivergence with your hosts, me, Nic King.
And me, Kate Fox. If our conversation sparked a thought, a question, or even a smile, don't keep it to yourself. Drop us a line at hello@neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk or visit our website, neurotypicalsdon'tjugglechainsaws.co.uk, to write in. We'd love to hear from you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, consider leaving us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast platform.
Until next time, keep embracing the unique ways you juggle the chainsaws of life.